Devyani, 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 you are mine. You are mine forever. Bind your soul.
The Forbidden Spell of Eklavya. In the small, crumbling village of Ranagar, there lived a poor potter named Eklavya. His life was full of struggles, and his dreams were filled with impossible desires. Among them, one stood out: his love for Princess Devyani, the daughter of the mighty Raja Bhairav, whose palace stood tall and shining in the distance. Eklavya knew his place in the world. He was a nobody, just a man covered in clay and sweat, while Devyani was a woman of grace and wealth. But his heart refused to listen to reason. Every night, he sat under the old banyan tree at the edge of the village, staring at the glowing palace windows and dreaming of a life he could never have. One fateful night, an old man with piercing eyes and a crooked staff appeared beneath the banyan tree. He introduced himself as Badrak, a wandering sage. "Why do you sit here, boy, looking so lost?" the old man asked, his voice calm yet unnerving. Eklavya, feeling an odd pull toward the stranger, confessed his love for the princess. He admitted his hopelessness and how the gap between their worlds was too vast. Badrak's lips curled into a sly smile. "What if I told you there is a way to make her yours?" Eklavya's eyes widened. "Tell me!" Badrak leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "There is an ancient spell, forbidden and dangerous. It can bend her will to your desire. But remember, the price is heavy." Eklavya hesitated. "What kind of price?" The old man chuckled darkly. "That you will discover in time. The question is, do you dare?" Without thinking twice, Eklavya nodded. He was ready to pay any price for her love. Badrak handed him a black powder wrapped in a crimson cloth. "Burn this at midnight under the banyan tree. Call her name 3 times, and the spell will be cast." The first encounter that night, Eklavya followed the instructions with trembling hands. The powder burned with an eerie green flame, and a strange wind howled through the tree. He whispered, "Devyani, Devyani." The next morning, as Princess Devyani strolled through the village markets with her maids, her eyes fell on Eklavya. She paused, her gaze lingering. "Who is that man?" she asked. Her maid replied, "Just a poor potter, your highness." But Devyani couldn't look away. Something about him pulled at her heart. She dismissed her maids and approached him, much to everyone's shock. "What is your name?" she asked softly. "Eklavya," he said, his voice trembling. From that moment, Devyani found excuses to visit him. She brought him food, spoke to him for hours, and even laughed at his simple jokes. The villagers whispered in disbelief. The warning Raja Bhairav soon heard of his daughter's unusual behavior. He summoned Devyani and forbade her from meeting Eklavya. But she defied him, her love growing stronger with each passing day. One night, the old man Badrak appeared before Eklavya again. "The spell has worked," he said, his voice cold. "But remember, magic comes with consequences. You must prepare yourself." Eklavya brushed him off, too blinded by his newfound happiness. "She loves me now. That's all that matters." Badrak's eyes darkened. "You have taken what was not yours. Fate will demand balance." The shadows deepen. Strange things began happening in the village. The crops withered, animals fell ill, and the once clear river turned muddy. The villagers blamed Eklavya, calling him cursed. Devyani stood by his side, refusing to believe the accusations. She convinced Eklavya to leave the village and start a new life elsewhere. Together, they fled to a distant town, where they lived as husband and wife. But happiness was short-lived. Devyani began having nightmares. She woke up screaming, her body drenched in sweat. "Something is wrong," she whispered to Eklavya. "I feel like I'm losing myself." Eklavya, too, noticed changes. Devyani's once bright eyes grew dull, and her laughter faded. She became a shadow of her former self. The terrible truth. Desperate, Eklavya sought out Badrak, who appeared one last time under the banyan tree. "You were warned," the old man said, his voice like a hiss. "Love forced by magic is not love at all. The spell is draining her soul." Eklavya fell to his knees. "How do I stop it? How do I save her?" Badrak handed him a small knife. "You must break the bond, but to do so you must let her go, forever." Eklavya's heart shattered, but as he returned home and saw Devyani pale and weak, he knew what he had to do. That night, under the same banyan tree where it all began, Eklavya whispered her name one last time. As the spell broke, Devyani collapsed in his arms. She opened her eyes briefly, confusion clouding her face. "Who "Are you?" she asked before falling unconscious. The price of desire. Devyani returned to her palace the next day, her memories of Eklavya erased. She resumed her royal life as if nothing had happened. Eklavya, now a broken man, disappeared from the village. Some say he wandered into the forest and never returned. Others believe he became a hermit, living out his days in regret. The banyan tree remained, its roots twisted and dark. Villagers avoided it, saying it was cursed. And on moonless nights, they claimed to hear whispers of a name carried by the wind. Devyani. The tale of Eklavya serves as a warning. Be careful what you wish for the cost may be greater than you can bear.